Today, we bring you an episode that we are calling Beyond Permission: Why We Still Do Not Act Even When It Is Safe to Try. And for this episode, I'm going to be by Erin, and I'm not going to pronounce her surname. She's going to do that for me. But before we get to introduce Erin, I'm going to introduce an interesting format for the episode of today, especially because it's all about play. And Erin and I thought it could be fun to do a rapid fire kind of a format. What is that? I ask some questions and Erin's going to respond in 60 seconds or less. Okay, that's going to be real fun. She doesn't really know about all the questions, though I might have given her a few hints and or I don't know, maybe she's even planned some nasty stuff for me. Who knows? We'll just figure that out. Over to you, Erin. Welcome, and please introduce yourself, and we'd love to take it forward from here.
Thank you so much, Sarika. I'm so excited to be joining you. I'm Erin Faehrmann. I'm the Chief Play Officer of Lead with Play. It's my little social enterprise. It's me in my house a day a week. It's a tiny little enterprise with a global reach. And when you start your own business, you can come up with your own job titles. So if you own your own business, I encourage you to think about your job title and how you can make it more fun. Be a Chief Play Officer. Why not? I work exclusively with adults, so not children, helping them to live better lives and families and communities and workplaces through play, which is a lot harder than it sounds, as I'm sure some of the listeners are thinking, like, what are you talking about? In my day job, and I think this is how we bumped into each other. I'm a business change manager in technology implementation world in the state government organisation here in South Australia. So I'm based in South Australia, and the two worlds go beautifully together, and that's how we first bumped into each other.
Indeed, indeed. So, Erin, are you ready to play?
Yes, please. Are you?
Yes, I'm excited. For the first time in many years, I think now, I've got my set of index cards for questionnaire for a rapid round, or, rapid fire round, as I would call it. So I think without further ado, let's just begin. Okay.
Hi.
So let's start with one word for why adults. Oh, no, actually, look at that. I want to change my first question. Okay, here goes.
Go for it.
What is play?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, there's pure definitions. I like to talk about play. There's definitions of play that it's for its own purpose. It's enjoyment, doing something that's enjoyment for its own purpose. I work in the purposeful applied play world with adults. So you can just go out and play because it's fun for no reason other than for enjoyment. But often in the adult world, in adult settings, it's applied play, which is, think of it, serious play. Sorry, pure play is just playing for fun. Pure serious is the world of business as we know it, or the world of trying to lead communities as we know it, of families, parenting. And then in the middle is serious play. So you are playing, but you're playing for a reason and there's outcomes. So it depends which angle you're coming up, but I mostly work in the serious play, applied play, taking playful approaches and applying them to human and business and social problems.
Love that. Okay, which gets me to the next question. How does that look like in real work situations? Give us an example of that.
There are a billion ways. I think I'll touch on now, and we might get into it more later. Dr. Stuart Brown wrote a book called Play a long time ago, and it puts forward from his research 8 adult play styles. So there's kind of these 8 like archetypal ways that adults prefer to engage in play. And that starts to speak to the diversity of what it can look like. It can look like people talking, it can look very active, it can look like arts, crafts, lots of creative, which is what we were talking about earlier. The whole point of today's podcast is about creativity and innovation and how we kind of bring some of that to life. It can be moving, jumping, competing, thinking. It can look in a million different ways. Sometimes it's what you wear. We've both got sparkles on today. For us, that might be playful. Dopamine dressing is one way that people can play. I've got little fish tank earrings on because that makes me feel joyful and happy and makes me feel like I'm spreading some joy in the world. So for me, that's play.
Awesome. So what's one word why you see adults stop playing?
Well, we're tired. That's one.
Well, we did speak
And
of energy. That is true.
yes, we're tired. I think but if it was one word, I'd say unlearn. I often talk about how adults unlearn to play. We grow up, we're conditioned. We know that we go through processes as we're social animals, we're social creatures, and we learn from the cues around us over our life. And most of the modern societies will condition us to unlearn how to play. They put us in classrooms sitting, listening, writing. We get a little bit of playtime at recess and lunch, maybe. And then you get home and there's homework and cram clubs and whatever else is going on. So we kind of unlearn it. We unlearn it as a technique for getting through life. And so a lot of the work I do, sometimes people call it rehabilitation. I'm helping reintroduce play as a legitimate tool and strategy for learning. Because when we play as children, when we play, we're learning. What are the boundaries of the world? How far can I push something? What happens if I do this? And it's a legitimate strategy to learn. We unlearn it as a strategy. So I would say unlearn if it was one word.
It is definitely, at least in my dictionary. I don't know about the real ones, but okay. So of course, I think I know the response to this, but I'm still going to ask you, when did you last play?
When I put these earrings on, probably, I'd say. Micro play every day. That's how I last played in a small way. I also have just come from another online conversation with some applied improvisation practitioners, which is a specific way that you can play in the adult world. And we were all brainstorming some activities that someone can run at a conference. They're going to be on a panel. And for me, it was play to even just talk to seven other people about what about this and what if you did that? That's play for me to just create those ideas. But it's a bit better too because what we were creating was play activities for adults.
Nice. So to even get into this play mode, if I could call it that, did you have to like give yourself permission to play?
Yes, and early in my career, I had to fight for it, I feel. I had to sort of I felt like it was right, and then I went looking for the evidence. I grew up professionally in an engineering organization, state government water utility, and lots of technical experts, and so really grew up around needing an evidence base for decisions and expenditure and frameworks. There's evidence and there's risks. And so when it felt right to start incorporating play, I looked for the evidence. It feels right, but is it right? Is there evidence? Are there people doing it? Does it have the outcomes? That's just kind of how I'm wired. Like, is there an outcome? And there is. And that became my permission slip. The research, the case studies, the seeing people doing it and getting the outcomes became my really rock solid permission slip that I could give myself and also show other people.
Love that. Okay, but then the next thing would be, what's tougher? Is it giving permission or taking permission?
Well, it probably depends on the context, and really what the barrier is. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you have to start with giving yourself permission because nobody can give you a permission slip and force you to use it.
True,
I guess
true.
you have to write your own first.
Yeah, and how do you see that happening in organizations when it comes to giving and taking permission?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I do a bit of one-on-one play coaching with people and they say, okay, you've convinced me. Maybe I'll have a go at this play thing again, but like, where do I get started? And you've told me a little bit about what it can look like and how people do it, but how do I go from not having that conversation to, ta-da, I play now? Good question. Always starting small and always starting, safe. Like anything we try that's new, de-risk it for yourself. So for me, when I started professionally in my career, showing up as a more playful leader, I started wearing t-shirts with my business jacket and my business suit on, but the t-shirt I would wear underneath it would have like motivational cartoon type prints on them. It would be, like a little pig with wings saying, believe in your dreams,
Uh-huh.
or a little unicorn with, some kind of motivational, fun message. Something was positive. And so that was the way I started to kind of sneak it in like a little Trojan horse into a very professional and serious environment. And earrings for me, dopamine dressing was definitely my gateway drug to play in the workplace. And then beyond that, it was starting to ask, and definitely ask, not force, ask the people that I worked closest with, hey, what do you reckon? Do you want to try something different and try something a little bit? And if it works, do some more. And if it doesn't, adapt or ask someone else, but just continuing to try and find those forums and people that would accept the invitation to play and that you could experiment with.
Hmm. I'm forced to ask this question. What's the biggest or you've probably heard many responses from people whenever you probably try and introduce play. So what's the biggest pushback response that you get from people or a common phrase? I don't know.
Yeah, I heard a conference I facilitated at fairly recently, and we did crowdsourcing. What gets in people's way of trying to do play at work, either individually or collectively. And what I heard very clearly from that conversation was that there was this, people were saying you're not allowed to have emotions in the workplace, and play will it comes with emotions. That can be happiness, it can be laughter, it can be um, discomfort because you're trying to like work out a problem and or that we're you and I are coming up with crazy ideas and there might be someone else in the room feeling very uncomfortable about how silly that all is. Like that's not why you what a waste of time. There's a lot of emotions that come up. So we had a really interesting conversation about if you're in a professional workplace and you're not allowed to have emotions, then of course that holds you back even from having joyful play, let alone the really tricky stuff. And also, isn't it funny? Because if human beings are in the workplace, then emotions are present. The only difference is you're not talking about them. They are, if you have human, there's emotions there. Of course, they come with you. You can't leave them at the door. So how much energy are we putting into repressing those emotions, not letting them show up? And how much more energy would we have to solve the complex problems of our day if we weren't wasting the energy repressing emotions that exist whether you want them to or not?
True, very true. Okay. And I've heard you say this already in the previous responses you gave me, but I think it still deserves a specific question here. In the context of play, what is it that you see now mattering more? Is it the environment in which play is being done, or is it the individual's mindset? Or you tell me.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think again, it has to be mindset first. I mean, it's the answer is both.
Hmm.
Uh, if an individual doesn't feel like they want to try and find playful ways to do things, and when I say playful, we can say playful or we can just say creative. They're the same thing. They can be just the same thing. I mean, some really fun, playful activity for me is spreadsheets and pivot tables. I love spreadsheets and pivot tables. That is play for me. So, if I'm talking to someone in finance and they're not open to me running some numbers a bit differently in a different model with a different pivot table, then we're going to have problems. The environment's not being successful. But if I don't even ask in the first place because my fixed mindset says, this is not where play shows up. I can't do this here. We can't play here. I remember the first real memory I have of trying to introduce creative approaches in the workplace is my executive director said to me, we can't play here, Erin. We're not Google.
Uh-huh.
Like, wow, that's a mindset. And if you have that mindset, it doesn't matter how encouraging the environment is, you're not going to accept the invitation to play.
True, true. Okay, which brings me to another idea. I want to switch the format of play that we have here, and I'm
Mhm.
going to move you to a truth and myth format.
Great.
So, the next two questions, at least that I have for you, you're going to tell me whether you think it's a truth or is it a myth. People
Okay.
need clarity before they action to play.
Well, hopefully not. No, a myth. That's a myth. Imagine if we only ever act when there's clarity. I mean, the whole point of incorporating creative and innovative approaches is because we're working with the unknown. We're living in complex adaptive systems. We don't know the best way forward. We need to find new solutions. So, by definition, you can't know. You can't have clarity. Yeah, it's a myth.
Awesome. Okay, one more, and that is play has no place at all in a high stakes environment, and especially if time is short.
Oh, that's a good one too. I'd like to say it depends, but I'd say overall it's a myth. I have a vivid memory here in South Australia in 2020, just before COVID came through. We had some really horrific bushfires. It was a really tough time for our state. And my husband's in the Army Reserves, and he he deployed to go and support that. And a lot of the folks who were involved in that bushfire response became very hypervigilant about we've got to go. And he would come home for a day, just so stressed out and so phone pinging and just up to here, ready and wired. And I sent him to work with puzzles. Look, you just need to bring, and hypervigilance is the thing in the police force and other kind of defense areas. You need to somehow bring the base level of your energy down because you're not operating effectively in this high stakes emergency situation. So you need to bring that into that situation to come back down because you're not making smart decisions when you're all hypervigilant. So overall, I say myth.
Really, really important point there. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to switch the format back again
Great.
to the regular format that we were going in. And the question for you now is, what's a belief about play at work that you completely disagree with?
Hmm. Well, I've talked already about you can't have emotions at work. Too bad. Guess what? They're happening anyway.
Uh-huh.
I agree with that. Um, I think one of the things that often happens in professional settings, in particular in workplaces, maybe in families as well, is that one person's version of fun is forced on other people. And forced fun is not fun. So I think people see something like the one I hear the most is amazing race Christmas parties.
Okay.
If you're thinking of running an amazing race Christmas party, I'm encouraging you to not do that. It's so divisive. It's the one I hear the most from people that they had a really terrible time. They hated it. They were forced to, they said, come on, guys, we'll all have fun. So yeah, I guess the belief is that one person's version of fun, this will be fun. I'm going to run a thing and it's going to be fun. And it's just not the case. Everybody's idea of fun is different and they need to be able to be invited and decline the invitation to play. Otherwise, you can have some really terrible consequences. You can do more damage than good.
Yeah, that is so true. The invitation matters, and it's a choice, right, that people can make, whether I want to choose, accept, or just, yeah, say pass. That's okay.
Yeah, because what happens if you don't give them that option?
Yeah.
Then they get forced into it, and all they remember was this terrible time that they had to look stupid in front of their colleagues that they didn't want to, and now they'll never go to another one, and they'll it's not the positive culture building.
Yeah, which brings us back to an important point that you said earlier. People need to feel safe to play it too, right? And that's if I want to pass right now, I'll just say pass, and we should be okay with it, feeling safe.
Mm, yeah.
Lovely. Okay, next one. Where or what context does play break down or not work as expected? Of course, you said one thing, it's not the same for everybody, but what else? Where do you see play just breaking down?
Yeah. I think sometimes I'll get people call me and say, look, I've got a problem. So applied play is really good for fostering connection with humans, supporting people's well-being, and solving complex problems. They're the three things that normally leaders, people will come to me and say, this is one of these things that I need, and I think you can help me. And in some situations, the trust and the psychological safety in a team or an area is so low that I'll suggest that they go and get some other support, some professional mediation or team conflict conversation support before we go into any kind of play modalities. Because if you insert play into a team or an environment where they don't trust each other, they're undermining, it's toxic, whatever's happening, it will all fall flat. People will either perform and you could do more harm, or they won't engage, or they'll undermine, or you'll actually fuel the fire of discontent. So sometimes I suggest to people they might want to do some work before they're ready to go to a conversation that's more collaborative where they can start to build some trust.
Love that. Awesome. Okay. So even when people have that permission to play, why are people still holding back today? Because I've been hearing a lot of that now. So
Yeah.
people hold back.
Well, it can be risky. And I guess on one hand, it depends on people's risk appetite. I work with a lot of technical folks. I grew up in very technical industries and they're used to being experts in their field and knowing what they're talking about, not looking silly, not being wrong. I mean, perfectionists, technical experts, they're made a career out of not being wrong. And play, again, by definition, is experimenting, doing something creative, not knowing how it will go. So you have to be open to looking wrong, silly, making a mistake. And that's not necessarily a comfortable habit for people. And so even when we say, okay, you can do this, and they go, sure, I might do that at home, but I'm never going to do it in front of my colleagues, or I might do it with Sarika, but I'm not going to do it in a big room. So it is about where is their comfort zone with themselves, in their context. Do they feel comfortable and safe to challenge themselves? Do they feel comfortable to be wrong? Fear of failure is a huge issue in my experience, with technical experts, people in their 40s and 50s in management positions who've made a career out of being right. A fear of failure is a huge handbrake for them.
So true. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep my emotions aside. Okay.
No, they're there anyway, Sarika, is what I'm telling you. I
Exactly.
say let them
Fine.
out.
Oh, oh, we can't laugh. Come on. Keep your emotions aside. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Okay. Are you ready to change the format again?
Sure.
Okay. So, a new format. I want you to complete this sentence. When I say play at work becomes pointless when dash.
When you don't know what you're doing it for.
Say more.
I mentioned that I'm a purpose girl. I like outcomes. I'm not
Yeah.
going to run a pizza party just because someone thinks it's a good idea to run a pizza party. I want to know, why did you decide to do that? What is it you're actually trying to achieve? Because we so often, I mean, I see this in technology too. We come up with a solution without really defining the problem. So sometimes oh, let's do a team building day. It's a solution. But what is the problem? If there's this problem, if you've got a problem of people not being clear what their roles are, and that's what's causing a lack of a team culture, a pizza party doesn't help that. It's not helping at all. But a Lego serious play session where we sit down and we build 3D models of how we think our roles fit in our team and how we work together, that would solve that problem. But a pizza party is not going to solve it.
Totally, totally. Which actually brings me to maybe some examples or some context that you have been seeing globally in your workplaces where adults are really playing more at work. What are you seeing?
Well, I'd love to see more. Where I see, for many years, I first came across Lego Serious Play, for example, as an applied play methodology 20 years ago in university innovation circles. So playful approaches do get used there a lot because they need to be creative and innovative. I'm also seeing some really wonderful work, particularly in Europe, in the climate change space. So I mentioned the play is really good for solving complex problems and
Yeah,
bringing people together. And so, where more do we need that than in something like the climate space? Bring people together, solve complex problems, try and find a way forward where it's not clear. So, there's amazing people like Lucy Hawthorne at Climate Play, who's using Lego and a whole bunch of other different play modalities to help people have very real and actionable conversations about what can they do about climate when it can be so overwhelming and fatiguing you don't know where to start. She's helping people really empower themselves about how they can just take the next step forward. And I see it a lot in the kind of post-capitalism systems thinking type world as well. Because again, we're like, gosh, if the world as it is now is not serving us and may not into the future, how do we reimagine our world going forward? And that's the space that play is primed to work in.
wow. Yeah, very powerful, which is my next question by switching the format again. Maybe you've answered it, but I'm still going to ask it. Okay, play at work becomes powerful when complete the sentence.
People opt in.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, which is the reverse of the forced fun. It can be very powerful when people are all saying yes and okay, so applied improvisation is another one of these amazing global applied play modalities. It takes theatre improv and brings it into business. And of course, yes and is the classic improv statement. Yes, meaning I acknowledge your view. I don't have to agree with it, but I'm acknowledging what you're saying. There's a comma for a pause where we think, and the and where we build on what was said. And so when you have a team of people who are all saying, Yes, Sarika. And what I'd love to do is this. Yes, Erin. And what I love about that idea is then that's where it can be generative and you really get to fuel the fire of the energy of the ideas. And then if you have people in the corner going, that'll never work. I think this is stupid. It takes it's like the fire blanket. The energy takes all of the oxygen out of the fire and it goes out.
That is so true. Okay. So I have just one other question left for you. But before I ask you that, I'm curious, would there be anything else that you'd love to share with our audience before I get to that last question?
Two things maybe. I can talk a little more about the adult play styles that I mentioned earlier, and I can invite you to play. We could play and have a go at it.
Let's go for both of them. So you want to first share a little more about the adult play styles with us and then
Yeah,
to your game.
yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so I mentioned Dr. Stuart Brown came up with 8 adult play styles, and of course, like any kind of psychometric social profiling, um, it's a bit of a fuzzy filter, a way to start to identify different ways, but it doesn't mean it's your personality like 100% you can't change and there's only one. So we take it with a pinch of salt. There's this wonderful online surveys that you can do, fill in some questions, and it suggests to you, you might be a one of these. And it's just a way to start to pinpoint. So it's things like some people find competition really fun. I do not. I am not that person, but some do. The people who love Amazing Race Christmas parties, they're the competitors of the world. Others, I'm an explorer, so I love new ideas, meeting wonderful people like you, discovering different things, playing with spreadsheets. That's what's really fun for me. But other people are kinesthetes. They need to move their body. You know, I'm happy to go to a conference and sit and listen and learn all day, but there's some people that within an hour that I need to move. Got to move my body. I need to think with my hands. I need to walk while I run, do stuff. And then there's creators and collectors and storytellers. There's whole 8 ranges. And so you start to hear even in just the labels of them how, oh, yeah, that might be different. How might that show up differently for people? And hopefully it starts to answer why you might have asked someone to play once before and it wasn't fun for them or they declined. Maybe it's just because their play style is different. Sarika, would you love to play chess with me? No, that sounds terrible.
Mhm.
I have a friend Tracy, we get along great, and she hates spreadsheets and I love them. So I just know I don't talk to her about spreadsheets, but we talk about other things because she's an explorer too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really important. Yeah, as you were talking, I was like, okay, I have a mixed kind of a style. I love to move. So right now, I'm moving, I'm talking. Yeah, I need to move around, think. But when it comes to being, getting into that zone of creativity, I love to play board games and I'm like all over the place. Okay, this is something that resonates with me. So if somebody says, "Oh, we're having a fun party," I'm like, define fun. What are you doing in the party?
That's
I'm
so
like,
smart to find fun.
yeah, what does that mean? And what does that mean for me? Am I going to have fun? So, of course, I fully resonate
Yes.
with every word you've been talking about. But okay,
I
let's,
love that. I love that as a strategy. Well, define fun before I
yeah,
say yes.
but I'm actually that way. I just asked, I was like, yeah, okay, define that for me. Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to have fun. You might, but I don't think I will. Or, hey, that's great. I'm going to jump in. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And actually, as you've talked there, it reminds me that often when folks will hire me or ask me to come in to speak or run a workshop, sometimes it can happen that they say, oh, here's Erin, we've brought her in, we're going to have fun. And I tell them in advance not to say that. Sometimes they forget. If they do say that, I'll say, look, fun is an emotion and you own your emotions. I don't get to say it's fun, only you do. What I can say is I'm going to invite you to play. It's going to be different,
Hmm.
probably memorable, and hopefully useful. But I'm not guaranteeing that it's fun, and we might just be experimenting and not actually get the big aha moment. We might just be exploring ideas in a new way to see if that brings up something different. And most of the time, it's memorable and useful, but I'm not going to guarantee fun. That's really on you to decide.
Well, for me, this has been a fun conversation so far. Everything
I'm
about it has
glad.
been awesome, and I'm enjoying every piece of it. And now I'm intrigued. What's
Shall
the
we play?
Yes, I'm
Do you want to
up for it.
play?
Yes, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember when I first got started in this world, I was one of those people like, yeah, okay, so I found the evidence you're allowed to, but what do I do next? What does it look like? So there's some really quick things that we can do. I mentioned that play can be really good for problem solving. That's hard to do fast on a podcast, so we'll park that one. It's really good for connection. It's also really good for personal nourishment. So, Sarika, I ask you, would you like to play for connection or would you like to play for nourishment?
That sounds good. I mean, both are good. I'll let you
They're both
choose,
good.
actually. I'll let you choose.
Okay, you don't mind? All right, let's play for connection. That sounds fun. This is a podcast. So we can play a game called Two Things in Common, or we can play a game called Phone Photo Lottery. Which one would you like to play?
Two things in common is great to start
Great.
with. And if we have the
Let's
time, we'll
start
go to
there.
the next. Yeah.
Okay, sure, sure. Okay, so two things in common. We literally will play until we find two things that we have in common. And I'll ask you, is this something that's true for you? And you'll say yes or no. And we just play until we find two. If you want the game to end really fast, you would ask me, Erin, do you breathe air? And I will say yes. They're really obvious things. She's probably going to say yes to that. If you want to drag the game out, you ask really obscure things like, Sarika, did you have a cracker for breakfast today? Which is what I did. So you see, you can kind of decide throughout the game, like like I want to wrap this up. I'll ask some simple questions, or I really want to explore and get to know the nooks and crannies of your world. So I can go first. So, Sarika, have you ever visited Australia where I live? I'm here right now. Have you been here?
Okay, so I have a question before that. Does this have to be a
Yes.
yes and no, or can it be subjective?
Generally, it's a yes or no, but let's see what happens.
Okay, because I would say I have not visited where you are, but of course I've been to Australia twice.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. You've been to Australia. I've been to Australia too. We've found one thing in common already.
Yeah.
Now it's your turn. You ask me something that's true for you, and we'll see if I have that in common with you.
Okay. Have you been to Singapore?
Does the airport count? Everybody's been to Singapore airport. I
Yeah.
haven't been out of the airport.
Well, okay, on a personal discussion for it's beautiful. So yes, that counts. I love the Singapore
Okay.
airport. So yeah.
Well, there you go. We're both travelers. We found two things in common already.
Sounds like yes. You go
Easy as
next.
that. Yeah. That's that game. I mean, some people, if they're explorers and they love meeting people and or they're a collector or a storyteller, they might just ignore the rules of the game and just keep playing and for
Yeah,
hours if they
that's
want to
like
get
me.
to
I
know
would
each
say,
other.
yeah, I mean, it's almost like, yeah, I'm enjoying this already. I've gotten to know some things about you. So can we just go on and on and on?
I know.
But
So,
maybe we,
Sarika, that's why you have a podcast.
yeah, I know. But let's do this for another question.
Yes.
Too. Yeah.
Sure. Well, the other one for connection was a phone photo lottery. So, do you have your mobile phone handy?
Yeah, it's
You
on
have it there. And do
silent,
you
but yes.
sometimes take it to take photographs?
Yes.
Great. Can you give me a number between 1 and 20?
Just a random number.
Yeah.
Uh, two.
Great. Can you find the second last photograph on your photo reel, or
Second,
at least the closest one to that that you are comfortable talking about?
the second last one would actually be a receipt of the bill that I paid. So no, I'm not going to show you that,
Okay.
but I'll show you the next one.
You don't have to show me. We're just going to talk about what it is.
That's a tiramisu.
This is so fun.
And
Sarika,
I
why did you
want to
take a
do it
photo of tiramisu?
with a,
For viewers, it's very fancy tiramisu.
yes, and this is a tiramisu for all the listeners. It's a brilliant tiramisu I've had in a very long time at a restaurant that I just visited randomly. Brilliantly made. I loved it. Yes, so that's a tiramisu.
This is so fun, Sarika. This normally doesn't happen because my second last photograph is also cake.
Oh,
And I have, for people listening, you can kind of see three little cakes in the cupboard. I was at a local fancy little bakery at lunchtime buying cakes for my family dinner tonight, and I took the photos so I could tell them what all the ingredients were, and that's very rare. We both took photos of cakes
wow.
today.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And for our listeners, I'm just going to
yeah.
say, if you want to see the photograph, just jump onto YouTube and watch this video cast because you definitely want to see the tiramisu and the cake. Uh, of course, if you like those. So yeah, feel free
Yeah.
to do that. Love that. Okay, so but there's
Yeah.
four
That's
pieces,
the end of the
right?
game. Again, you can keep playing it if you want, but they're
Okay, but
just
this
both
was phone
designed for
photo.
connection.
But this was phone photo and something, right?
Lottery.
Lottery. What is that?
Yeah. Well, in Australia, a lottery is like where you can win money, a sweep, maybe I think they call it in the UK, where they have all the little balls and they pick the numbers and you can win. It's like a gambling thing. You can buy the ticket to win the money, lottery, bingo, something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not something we do in 30 seconds anyway. So okay, this was good. But this is fun. So we're saying people could do something as simple as this just to have
Uh,
fun, play at work,
yeah.
which brings me to my very final question. So after listening and watching our podcast, a video cast, what's one simple way that you would think our listeners and viewers could literally start playing at work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did a TEDx just last year and had the advice at the end of the TEDx. Do the play styles quiz so that you as an adult know what is going to light you up because you will have more fun if you're playing the way that you like to play. It also helps you understand anybody that you might invite to play with you, why that may or may not work for them. Because you don't want to ask someone to play. You're like being brave, I'm going to start trying, and then you keep getting no, 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 no. You give up. So if you understand a bit about the play styles, your style and what others might be, you're more ready to speak to people who might accept your invitation and not take it personally if they decline. Start with some self-understanding. And then the other piece of advice I give to people is to become a joy scientist. And in any way that you like, start to write notes either on your phone or have a little book that's a super cute little notebook anytime you feel joy. If you're really not sure, oh, it was really fun talking to Sarika today. I loved tasting that tiramisu today. I saw a bird or a child laugh. Anything that you feel a spark of joy, write it down, and over time, look back over the notes and see if you can spot patterns. What was happening? It's the simplest, tiniest little things. And how can you just bring more of that to the world if it's at work? I was out, it always seems to be when I'm out in nature. Okay, maybe a way to start playing at work that would be fun is to have all of our team meetings outside. What would that look like? I seem to have fun outside. Maybe we should go outside. Or it's always to do with what I'm wearing. Maybe we could dress up our office to be just a little more joyful. Maybe we could start there because that seems to bring me joy and maybe it would bring others joy. So that's, yeah, two ways, play styles and joy scientist.
Brilliant. I love all of that. So, to all our viewers and listeners, I think this has been such a fun podcast for me doing this conversation with Erin. And trust me, she didn't know most of the stuff I was bringing. Of course, we have a few examples that I'd given her, but she knew this was going to be rapid fire. And I had no idea she was going to play this game with me. But if you like to break the rules, of course, I broke all the rules while playing the game with her. I was having so much fun. So, thank you so much, Erin, for being on Perspectives of Change with me today and for breaking the format and triggering that thought in me that, okay, we should break this format and do something differently and just have fun
A
while
go.
yeah.
Experiment. No, I've loved being an experimenter with you today. Thank you so much for trusting me with that.
Indeed, it's been so much fun. So back to all our viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like, if you'd like to learn something more about it, of course, just put that in the comments. And if you loved something from this conversation, do share that in the comments below too. And we'll be back with yet another episode of Perspectives of Change. Thank you, everyone, once again. I'll see you again at hopefully another podcast, or somewhere online for sure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.